Welcome back to Xbox Corner, my name's Luke, and today on the channel we're going to be taking a look at Rustler, a game which answers the question, what would you get if you took the original Grand Theft Auto games, fused them with a historically inaccurate medieval setting, and then added a dash of pop culture and Monty Python for good measure? Now the game actually releases on the 31st of August, but thanks to the guys over at Modus Games who provided us with a review copy, we've been able to get hands on with it to see just how well it performs and whether or not it's worth your cash. So make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to keep up to date with our latest reviews, deals and Game Pass videos, and let's get started. So in a true homage to Grand Theft Auto 2, Rustler opens with a fantastic live action cutscene in which we see our Chrome Dome hero guy called Guy nicking a horse and getting into a bit of a scrap before being knocked unconscious, and this intro kind of sets the tone for the whole game to come. Now our main man Guy and his best friend Buddy are both part of a gang of rustlers who typically make a living from stealing horses and other petty crime, but Guy has big plans which will finally see him making out of the low life and into the high life. Unfortunately, these involve winning the grand tournament, which is usually reserved for highborn knights, and so our story follows Guy's journey as he lies, cheats, steals and kills his way to the top. Now as expected, like the rest of the game, the tenuous plotline of Rustler really doesn't take itself seriously, and both the main storyline and side missions are filled with ludicrous scenarios for you to get mixed up in, many of which contain iconic pop culture references to things like Monty Python, Fight Club and many other games and movies. All of these come together to form a tale filled with deception, revenge, danger and violence, but above all, plenty of silly humour, which I found suited my tastes quite nicely. So if you've ever played the original GTA games, Rustler borrows heavily from the gameplay mechanics which made those games such a joy to play. Swapping out cars for horses and guns for swords, axes and crossbows, the jump to a medieval setting works quite nicely, and series staples even make an appearance, such as the Pimp My Horse ride through which gives your horse a makeover and removes your wanted level in the process, and purchasable hideouts which act as save points, as well as plenty of other familiar gameplay elements. Now the main story of Rustler sees you completing a series of quests which take Guy from his humble beginnings as a peasant and rustler all the way to a grand tournament champ, or so he hopes, and finding quests is a simple process of following the blue and yellow on-screen arrows or markers on your map. There's some great variety to the game's quest, which almost always put Guy in a humorous situation, be that dressing up as a woman to sneak his way into a French fortress, or punching innocent civilians in the face to get them to go to Sunday Mass, and they generally involve you either collecting items, stealing horses, killing people, escorting people, or any combination of the above. As you complete quests, you learn yourself some cash and skill points which can be spent improving things like your health, damage, riding skills and several other, shall we say, unique skills, but one unlockable skill that I think should have been just available from the start is the ability to call your horse to your side, because whenever you complete a mission or die, whatever horse you were riding just disappears, leaving you to traipse back on foot to the nearest stable or town to obtain a new one. Now in addition to the standard quests, there are also a bunch of other optional activities you can partake in which usually earn you a little extra cash. These include a spot of fisticuffs at the local fight club, races which see you touring through the streets and countryside on horseback, crazy taxi style escort missions where you must deliver passengers to drop-off points within a strict time limit, or if you're looking to slow things down a little, you can always plough your mother's field, and no, that's not some kind of disgusting sexual innuendo, so behave yourself. Now when it comes to combat, most of the quests will see you getting into scraps with common thugs or ending up with a bounty on your head which riles up the local rozzers, and the twin stick control scheme works quite well, allowing you to move in one direction whilst facing the other. The game's arsenal of weapons consists of your usual assortment of swords, spears and axes, as well as a crossbow for ranged combat, but there are also a couple of more unique arms, including a beast of a scythe that you get quite early on, and turds. Yeah, you can actually throw turds at your enemies. Now unfortunately I did find combat could be quite clunky at times. There is for instance no weapon wheel in the game, so you have to switch through weapons with the D-pad, your crossbow takes quite some time to reload between shots, and the game's stamina system feels rather punishing when going up against multiple opponents, but there is also an element of skill to it, with well-timed blocks allowing you to parry and perform counter-attacks. The game also features some horseback combat which can be a little bit hit and miss, but in general, controlling things like horses and carts is reasonably easy to get to grips with. You steer and move your horse with a left thumbstick and hold L or ZL to set them galloping or cantering, but each vehicle type, shall we say, has its own turning circle, and I frequently found myself having to use the reverse button after getting stuck in a corner or against an indestructible fence. So finally turning to the point of runtime then, Rustler's world is nowhere near as expansive as modern open world games, and it's likely to take you around 8 hours to complete the main storyline, with a few more hours to wrap up all the side quests, and after that you can play around doing some of the side activities and collecting all of the hidden collectibles, but other than that it seems to be pretty limited when it comes to replayability. So with the visuals in this one then, the developers have kind of gone for a cartoony look with a hint of realism to them, and the game's characters have a kind of cel-shaded black outline to them, which makes them stand out a little more against the background. There's some nice visual variety to the game's environments and they all look pretty good, and I especially liked all the little additional touches, like when you're walking through the city and one of the citizens just opens up a window and empties a slot bucket out into the street. I felt that they really nailed the top-down perspective in this one, and it works well to mimic the classic GTA feel that they were going for, but I also feel that they could have zoomed out the camera a little more when you were riding quickly on horseback, just to give you a better view of what was coming up. Now when it comes to performance, I didn't really notice any frame rate drops on the Series X version, but I did notice some kind of strange screen tearing at some points, though these occurrences were few and far between. So audio wise then, the game sounds pretty good. The sound effects are all well done, consisting of all your standard medievally sounds such as horses, sword swipes and all that good stuff, and the ambient background sounds give the environment some nice atmosphere. About the only thing that I would criticise in terms of the sound design is the lack of voice acting, because instead of this, the characters just mumble gibberish, and after a while it does become a little irritating. When it comes to music, the game does things a little differently, and instead of having a soundtrack playing constantly on repeat, you actually enlist the services of a bard, and these guys will follow you around playing an assortment of tunes on the loops or beatboxing if they don't have one, and to change tracks, you simply need to punch them in the face. One of my favourite things about the music though had to be a couple of awesome moments in the game where medieval sounding renditions of Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody and Dead or Alive's You Spin Me Right Round were playing, and these just topped off the humorous situations perfectly. So the final verdict on this one then, and while the game is a little rough around the edges, I can't deny that I had fun playing it, and it achieves what it sets out to do, which is capturing that classic GTA feel whilst also putting a medieval spin on it. I enjoyed the main storyline and loved the game's shamelessly silly humour and all the ridiculous scenarios our guy found himself in, but the game is not without its issues, and aside from the somewhat clunky combat and a few questionable gameplay decisions, I also suffered from a couple of crashes where the game's screen remained black and I could just hear audio in the background. All in all though, Rustler still has plenty of fun to offer, and so I'm going to be giving it an above average 7 out of 10. Hopefully if Rustler does well, we'll see Guy return in a sequel, because there's a lot to like about the game, and if they refine the existing mechanics and come back with something a little more polished, they could definitely be onto a winning series with this one. And so that's about it for this review of Rustler, but what did you guys think of it? Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below, and let me know whether or not you're going to be picking up the game on release. We'll be back pretty soon with some more awesome content on the channel, so don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with all our latest reviews, deals and Game Pass videos, and until next time, I hope you all have a fantastic day. Thanks everyone, take care.